So top of the hour, let's get rolling. What do we got on?
All right, let's do this. Welcome, everybody. This is episode 24 of Baseline Tech Talk Tuesday. And as always, for anyone joining us for the first time or second time, and you want to catch any of the other previous 23 episodes, they're all on YouTube. So you can go to the YouTube channel, and the handle for Baseline is Baseline Web Training. That's all one word, Baseline Web Training. And you can find all the Tech Talk Tuesdays and the content that Dan's making, which is how-to videos. So I think this last week he's made 2 or 3 new how-to videos. So search for it, find it, and bookmark it so you can always have a place to go back to learn more about how to use our products. And I'm Andy Humphrey, Regional Sales Manager for the Northeast. We have Chris Wright, VP of Sales, and Dan Conger, our Training Manager, who's going to lead us off today. And we're going to be talking about program priorities. And interestingly, this is not a brand new capability for Baseline. This is something that's been available for what we think is 6 to 8 years. We were going to go back and find exactly when this capability came out, but it's been around for a long time. And people do use it, but not as often as you would think. And sometimes it's misunderstood about exactly how it does what it does. So we want to bring clarity to that and make sure you guys know how you can use this capability to your advantage. Exactly. So with that, Dan, why don't you lead us off?
Okay, cool. While I do my intro, would you turn on the sharing for me? We're out for a week and we forget our normal routine and things. So
good.
Awesome. Thank you. So program priorities, they're, as Andy led on, they're pretty powerful. And there's a lot we can do with them, but I want to start off with a definition. Andy did a really good job. He just copied and pasted this right from our user manual. And while I think it's a bad idea for presenters to read slides, I do want to read this. I want to go through this word by word. So a program priority is when each program can be given a watering priority ranked from 1 to 99, where 1 is the highest priority. So when a start event occurs, the program with that highest priority has precedence. It will trump, if you will, the watering time and the schedule. So that higher priority program will preempt the lower priority programs, and it's going to run to completion before the lower one runs. And then if all programs are set to the same priority, they run in order of the program. So I think we should break this down for a minute. So the first one, we've got 99 different programs. We have 99 different programs. We have 99 different priorities that we could set them to, all the way from 1 to 99, 99 being the lowest, 1 being the highest. Got it. The second sentence, we said when a start event occurs. Well, if we're thinking of a traditional timer, we're thinking of a start time. You know, it's 8 o'clock on Tuesday, so it's a start time. That's one way to do it. There's so many other different ways that we could start a program, right? We could do an event by code or a coaches button, a temperature sensor, a moisture sensor, all these different sensor inputs to start a watering. And then the third one is that higher priority program is going to preempt anybody that has a lower priority. So if priority 4 is running, a priority 5 is going to be secondary to that one. And if they all have the same number, if they're all priority 5, they're just going to run in the order of program. So program 2 will run before program 3 if they're both priority 5. So that's kind of essentially by the numbers, if you will. So I think I want to go into like how we're going to do this. So there's a couple of ways to do this. Let's get to my slide advance.
Dan, you may be about to jump into this, but what's the default priority number?
Priority number 5. Yes. Yeah, we'll see that.
Why would we choose priority 5 as the default?
Oh, good question. Well, I think it's really about ease of programming. So let's say you want to. We don't have to have anything priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. It just needs to be a smaller number and a larger number. So program priority 98 takes precedence over program or priority 99. So if I wanted to if 5 is kind of in the middle, I could jump one above and one below, and I could rank them that way, rather than having to go through.
It's not likely that somebody's going to have a lot of prioritized programs. So
Probably.
putting in the default 5 means that you can select a few programs to have a higher priority easily without having to change the priority on all programs,
right,
if they're all defaulted to 1.
Right. If you've got 6 you've set up, and all of a sudden one program becomes important, you just change that one program to priority 1. It just takes one setting instead of changing all of them.
Correct. Right. So we'll see those when we jump into Base Manager and when we get on the controller. So there's 2 ways that we can change these priorities. We can set them. We can either do them through Base Manager or do them directly through the controller. So let's. I'm going to jump into those, and we'll show you what those look like. So for those, I'm going to jump over to my App Manager and Base Manager account, and I've already got it on the Schedules tab. So I've got 3 programs in the Schedule tab, but I'm going to jump into this Program 2. So I'm going to click on Program 2, and I am sharing my Base Manager screen, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Perfect. Okay, good. So I'm doing this live. So we can see it's Program 2. It's a playing field, and I'm going to edit it so we can see all the changes in here. There's only a few zones in this program. There's 3 zones. There's our start time, but we could have any different start condition. But if we come down here to the schedule priority, this is at the default schedule priority 5. Well, I'm going to change this to schedule priority 1. A couple things are going to happen there. What's going to happen is priority 1, it's going to ignore the concurrency that we've already set up. So if we've said that the controller, right over in this section, the controller can run 7 programs across the entire controller, it's not going to do that. But we could run 2 at a time. So it's going to impact that, mainly because we've given this program the highest priority.
Okay, so let me state that in another way.
Please.
So you've got your concurrencies set up so that you'll run 2 zones out of that program at the same time.
Correct.
And the controller is capable of running 7 zones at one time across all programs. But because you gave this program a higher priority than the other programs, when it operates, when the start condition comes up and it turns on, it's only going to run 2 zones at a time out of that program, correct?
Absolutely right. It can't run any other, since it can't run any other programs, it needs to wait until this program is complete before it can run any other zones and any other programs.
So what if I had another program that I wanted to run at the same time concurrent with this that is also a high priority and I need to get water done on them?
Oh, how about we both make them both priority 1?
Brilliant.
Right. They need to be the same priority number, higher and the same in the other programs.
Right. Then I could run 2 out of this, and as many as it would pay attention to the concurrency on the other program as well. So I could run more zones at one time. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to save this one, and then we'll show you the other way to get to this. The other way to get to this is through the controller. And rather than go over to my controller and set up a camera there, I'm going to open up Live View. And just as a good reminder, Live View is exactly what my controller looks like. If I walk to the other side of my office, this is exactly what it looks like. But I'm going to control it through button pushes instead of rotating the dial. Other than that, that's the only difference here.
Yeah, and it's important that we show you this way because oftentimes controllers are configured for the first time on site, in the field. So we want to make sure that you know how to access these capabilities as if you were standing in the field.
Right. So it starts with either the program button or the program dial position. If you're at the control, it'll be program dial position. And here we've got this first menu. Normally we'd go into program start times or start days, but I'm going to go into advanced program setup. So that's this menu down here in the corner, and we're going to open that up. And then this will show me all my different programs. So there's program 1, the cistern fill, but I want to go, oh, I went the wrong way, didn't I? Oh, darn it.
That's the quick way to go around. If you're trying to access program 90, that is definitely the faster way.
Thank you.
Good
nice
input,
way.
Andy.
Nice save for me. Thank you. And then we can come down to change the priority here. And I can change it back to priority 5 if I want. So I think I've got it on priority. So I'm just hitting plus a few times there. It's back at priority 5. And now I can save it as this one. And it's just as simple as return to run. And it's now set back to priority 5. So those are the two ways to do it, right? Through Base Manager or through Live View / the controller.
I know we've done a Tech Talk Tuesday on Base Manager previously, but just as a reminder, Live View, this capability is free of charge, comes with every baseline controller as long as you can get it connected to the internet.
Right.
You can utilize Live View without having to have all of Base Manager capability and subscription cost. And
Live View is super helpful for when you're working with support. You could be standing at your controller and support with your permission could navigate through and see what's going on, again, without a full Base Manager access.
Yep.
Okay, so that's how we might do that. Let's get into some of the why. So I think it's all, why we do things is always just as important as how we might do it. So I'm going to go back to my slides. The why you might do it, and one reason we might do this is if you have a priority area that you want to make sure that always gets watered. So this site, we've got the front, maybe it's the front of a building or front entry to a homeowners association. It's high visibility, so it's really important that it gets watered. So this site has in excess of 90 zones, and the owner wanted to make sure that these annual color beds got watered every single day. And it was, if they didn't get watered, it was going to be bad news. So what you could do here is set the program that waters those annual beds, set it to priority 1. And then that'll make sure that every single day that gets watered and nothing else will water until those beds are done. And then it can move on to the other lower priority program. So you might set the turf leave it at priority 5 and the beds are the only thing at priority 1.
Yep. So if turf is running on a priority 5 and start time comes up for those annual beds that are priority lower than 5, say it could be 1 or it could be 4, then what happens to the turf that is running when that start time comes up for those annual beds is a higher priority?
Right. So what's so cool is we have that ability to pause any program. So it'll put that turf program in pause and let it run all of the higher priority. Now, if it's a priority 1, it will water all of priority 1 and nothing will run. If it's a 2, 3, or 4, if it's just a higher priority, it will see if it can run anything else.
Yeah, but it is important to remember that is, that's the expected behavior. So those annual beds, they water, and the other priority programs will go to pause. They'll be indicated on either the controller or in quick view, the color pink, so that you know what's happening. Mm-hmm. But the expected behavior is those higher priority or lower number programs run by themselves until they're complete. Then the other programs will pick back up again. And one of the nice things about setting this up is you don't have to find a gap in the programming schedule to fit in those annuals to make sure they're going to get watered. You can have them run whenever you want to. If it's a higher priority program, they will always water.
And when I used to manage irrigation out in the field, that was the challenge, right? Is I want to make sure this absolutely gets water. If nothing else does, this has to get water. So you're going to make it run the first thing. Well, how early can I make it run? Can I start at 4 a.m.? Can I, now you don't have to worry about it. You just run it when you want to run it, and it will pause anything else that's a different priority.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And as a reminder, when you see pink on the controller or quick view, it represents a pause condition, and there are different reasons why zones or programs can become paused. And there's always a reason. We just have to figure it out. And oftentimes when I get phone calls, this is one of the reasons, because the user has made some programs a higher priority without realizing quite what the behavior was going to be, and that it would cause other programs to become paused. And so just as a quick reminder, when you see pink, there's a reason why things are paused, and we just have to dig in and figure that out.
Nice. So I think we're just about at the halfway point. So if we got any questions that pop in, we'll definitely catch them at the end. But there's probably a few questions that are going to come up on this one. So another reason you might do it is if you've got a high priority program for synthetic turf. So here's one where we've got one water source that supplies the synthetic turf, but it also supplies the landscape. But when the synthetic turf runs, it has some large demand, right? So it needs all the water that our system can handle, and it needs all that full pressure. So if we run any other zone at the same time as this, we have some issues. So we definitely want to make sure that this runs when it has all of the attention, all the priority of the entire system.
Yeah. And it may sound like we make this stuff up just for something to talk about on Tech Talk, because they kind of seem like somewhat random examples, but these are real world problems that we are able to solve using these capabilities. I think we may have spoken to this one before. I won't say the client name, but Dan was right. There's one water source that manages both the landscape and the synthetic field hockey turf. And the practices vary, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, depending on the day, and there's games and there's different things happening on that field. And the way the coach operates this is with the coach's button. So that coach's button becomes the start condition.
Exactly.
So what happens is when that coach pushes the button, the landscape turf or the landscape plants automatically go to pause, and the athletic field takes over, and it runs through that quick syringe program. And when it's done, the landscape then resumes again automatically. So what we did is set up those synthetic zones on a higher priority, let's say number 1, and then that preempts the existing watering in the landscape. It just happens automatically. User doesn't have to do anything except for set that program as a higher priority. As soon as that coach hits the button, they get the water.
Yep. Nice. Awesome. So another reason you might do it is if you're doing a tank refill. So here's a site that uses a tank as their water supply, so everything runs through the tank. And it's really important that tank not run dry. So if the tank runs dry, we got several problems. We're going to starve our system. We're going to introduce some air into the system, and you very likely would damage a pump. So it's important that we allow this. We don't allow this tank to run all the way down. So when that cistern reaches an empty condition, so indicated by a pressure transducer or some sort of a switch or a moisture sensor, any input that says it's empty, it's going to start refilling it from its other water source. So it's going to maybe pull from a domestic supply and start filling that. Well, that domestic fill is running a program, right? We put a program that's called cistern fill, and that would put that program as a high priority program, a priority 1, and everything else could be at the default priority 5. Everything, as soon as that fill valve turns on and automatically starts filling the tank, by default, everything else pauses. And as soon as this program is complete and it's done,
and that program likely has a stop condition of some sort. It's either a timed stop or there's another sensor telling it to stop the program. And so as soon as that program stops, then the landscape resumes again, and it remembers exactly where it left off. So you haven't lost anything from your watering cycle.
Yeah. And a lot of this is to protect the pumps that are included in systems like this, right? Whether it's in a cistern or if it's in a fountain or if it's in a well, or even a pond or surface water. So it allows a recharge of that water source and have it prioritized as a recharge so that you can continue irrigation afterwards.
As we were preparing for this, Chris, we talked about, do we want to look at a tank? Do we want to look at a fountain? Do we want to, and there's all of these vessels, it's the same application. It's maybe the way the program runs is going to be different, but the application is identical.
Yeah. Yep. And it's becoming more and more prevalent, right? Secondary water sources are becoming more and more utilized. So
right.
having this capability is powerful performance.
Nice.
Yep.
Feature.
And it's important to know how it works. I think at the end, maybe we can talk a little bit about hydraulics and concurrency and make sure everybody's on the same page as far as the zone concurrency. Again, I know you touched on it, but at the end, let's hit that one more time.
Good. Well, I've got one more example, and this is particularly timely because the West Coast right now is just burning. So this is a site that Chris is familiar with, but I think I got a good understanding. I'll have you give us the details on it. But here they have, on this particular site, they have a program on the perimeter with some large rotor heads that could wet down some native or chaparral material if there's ever a fire. So they have I believe they have a coach's button that would have a start condition, and that perimeter program with the large rotors is a high priority. So it's a priority 1. The remainder of the landscape is a lower priority, could be a 2, could be the default 5. If they are aware of a fire approaching, they can hit the coach's button, start the program with the priority 1 starts, and everybody else pauses until that program is complete. So they're able to divert all their water pressure to that and make that the priority.
True. And let's clarify that it's not this particular site that has this capability.
Right.
Nobody's going to see any irrigation in that picture, but yes,
I can't get in trouble with legal.
You essentially explained it correctly. Yes, a commercial property in California that lines with the freeway, and they've got native grasses along the freeway that butt up against their property. And so oftentimes they get freeway or fires sparked by trucks or traffic going by. And so they want this barrier in place so that they can wet down the landscape before it gets to their property and does damage. So this can be accomplished not only with a coach's button, but we could utilize an air temperature sensor in this scenario also.
Yeah.
So if it gets to a certain temperature, it's going to turn on a zone that could wet down a perimeter to protect it from fire damage. So relevant application right now, not widely used, but something to think about.
Yeah, fascinating. Okay, awesome. So those are my examples today. So I think we have some other things that we could catch on this. Do we have any questions that have popped up yet, or do you want to go into? Did you have more?
Yeah, put some questions in here, guys. We'll keep talking, but what's on your mind? Have you used this capability before? Have you had an experience with it? We'd love to hear from you guys. And if you have questions, this is why we're here. We've got 7 minutes left. I can speak to one thing that I've seen. There are certain sites that they want to keep the hydraulics maximized. So let's just say, for sake of a round number, they want to be running 100 gallons a minute. And they've given priority to a program that's only running 10 gallons a minute. And they wonder why, for this certain period of time, we go from running 100 gallons a minute to only running 10 gallons a minute. And that's because this higher priority program is running all by itself until it's completed. And so I guess I would say that if hydraulics are a consideration, meaning either your pump can't run that low because the pressure will be too high, and you want to have it running more gallons per minute, give some consideration to having multiple programs with that same lower priority that Chris spoke to earlier. Maybe there can be 3 or 4 programs with a lower priority so that those programs can run concurrently. And we're not just running the 10 gallons anymore. We're still running 90 gallons of that higher priority. So as it relates to hydraulics, there could be some things to consider.
Absolutely. Yep. And I think the main point of this whole discussion is to illustrate the behavior of the system when these priorities are in place. And sometimes the expected behavior from the user in the field doesn't align with the way that the product is engineered to operate, and it creates some frustration that may be perceived as a tech support issue, and it's really just having an understanding of how it works. And so I want to make sure that everybody understands and that it's clear that when you have a higher priority program, if it is the only program that is the higher priority on the controller, when it comes up to run, it will run only that program and the concurrencies within that program. So, which emphasizes Andy's point in, the expectation of the hydraulics operation of it when you've got 400 gallons a minute available, but you've got this higher priority program and you're only running 80 gallons a minute.
Yeah. Okay? Yep. And again, there's multiple ways to think about this capability, because on one hand, you might want that precise control. You want that coach to have the water with that one program. But then you could be on another site, as Chris just spoke to, that has 400 gallons a minute and it has 28 programs. So you need to give it a little bit more thought on how to set this up to keep those hydraulics running correctly.
Yeah. And we don't do it to make it confusing. We do it to give you the power to have the system operate the way that it needs to in order to, keep the aesthetics of the property and to get water down within the allotted water window while respecting the size of your water sourcing. And if you look at these program priorities and how it would relate to then water source priorities, and you get into, budgets associated with water sources and things like that, it becomes a very powerful network of capabilities that can really manage some of the more complex hydraulic infrastructures that exist out there.
Nice.
So Mr. Shannon asked, can you edit and change program numbers to rearrange running programs?
Should we clarify, is that in real time? Like the program is already running and you want to change the priority, or is this before it runs?
Okay, so that's a good follow-up question. So Tom, if you want to respond to that, and then we'll see if we can address your original question. And then Rory Bacco asked, what is displayed while the higher priority is running? So if you've got in Base Manager or on the controller interface, you will see the color code for the zones that are running within the program that are a higher priority is blue.
Right. Blue.
And then the lower priority programs, if they were running or come up to water while the higher priority program is running, will either be pink or yellow.
Mm-hmm. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a message in Base Manager that says a program with a higher priority has preempted this program. So we alert you right in the quick view status.
Yeah, and that's a low level message. Yeah.
Yep.
Low priority message.
Yep. And then historically, if you're questioning maybe how the system has been running for the past 7 days, you can look at the activity report and you can see the color of those zones at different times of the day to see if they were blue or pink or yellow, to see if your programs have been paused in the past.
Yep.
Cool.
All right. So Mr. Shannon didn't respond. And we're 1 minute out.
Wait.
Oh, there it is. To rearrange after they are already programmed. In other words, change program 7 to number 1, force it to run first with others.
I think so. I mean, for everything I've seen, when you make a change, it goes into effect right away.
Yeah.
Truth. And you would do that by assigning those programs with the same priorities to get them to operate in the sequence really that you want them to. So, all right. So we are nearing the end of our session. What do we have on tap for next week?
Talk about something that's not so much a West Coast thing, but shutting down your system and blowing it out for the end of the season. So I irrigate year round, but not everybody, the rest of the country does not. So
funny. We started Tech Talk Tuesday by talking about startup in March. And 6 months later, we're now to the point where we're blowing out. And we're still going strong with Tech Talk Tuesday with good quality content.
Mm-hmm.
If I do say so myself.
All right.
There's 700 pages left in the manual.
700 pages. Nice.
We're gonna have Dan do a YouTube video of on program priorities to post for future educational purposes, so you can watch it over and over and over and over again if you choose. So look for that, and we appreciate your participation. Thanks for coming back after a pause week. We appreciate your support. Go out, be safe, get some work done, and we appreciate your support of Baseline.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great afternoon.
We'll see you next week.
See you next week. Bye now.